Hey folks, welcome to the MMA Heat podcast. I'm Karyn Bryant.
What's up, everyone? Alan Jouban here as well.
So back stateside, finally, I've been out on the road and stuff. Been in Singapore, been all over the world, going to Moscow later this week. So it's been good. But Alan, we had big fights this weekend. So should we just jump right into it?
Let's get into it.
Look, were you smacking your face like you're doing?
Yeah, I gotta get ready. You know, it's big fights. BMF. We're talking BMF.
The BMF belt. Well, yeah, the BMF belt was on the line. We know now that Jorge Masvidal is apparently the BMF. Tough fight for me because I feel like we all kind of got robbed a little bit. We all know how great Nate is. We all know how great Nate is in the later rounds. Jorge was totally putting it on him and was totally winning that fight, but we know that Nate comes on strong in the later rounds. So to have it stopped by the doctor really kind of bummed me out. I just was kind of screaming like, no, like, don't you know who that is? That's Nate. You can let it go. So it was kind of frustrating and not really the ideal way for that BMF belt to get decided, you know, with a doctor stoppage.
Agreed. I mean, at least, you know, the 3 rounds that we did get to see, they put on a show, back and forth. Well, I say back and forth. It was always a competitive fight. But I gotta say, even though it was a competitive fight, Jorge, he looked so dominant in my eyes. He was doing everything right. It's tough fighting Nate Diaz. He's very long. He's very tough. We know that, and he likes to come forward. He put the pressure on you, and when he gets you against the cage, he's able to usually hold a lot of guys. Yeah, we saw that against Anthony Pettis just recently. I thought Anthony Pettis was going to outkick him and things like that. But he was able to kind of bully Anthony Pettis. He wasn't able to do that against Masvidal. Masvidal always swung off of the cage. He always seemed to be the quicker guy. And he was fighting him pretty flawlessly, I think, up into the stoppage. The stoppage sucked, but I mean, I'm kind of torn on the cut. At first, I was very upset. As you said, you know, we wanted the fight to keep going. Obviously, it's Nate Diaz, and he's tough. And he didn't want the fight to end. But at the end of the day, I do believe that the doctor probably went into the back, sat Nate Diaz down and said, listen, the reason I stopped, and I know you're emotional, but you cut a big cut right here. You have a cut here. Anywhere there, you could have damaged a nerve. You could have had a droopy eye. You could have messed up something with your eyeball.
Right.
He probably explained to him in a technical way, in a medical fashion, that this was for his own good. He'll live to fight another day. And so it's probably best. And one little thing, you know, we talk about Nate Diaz in the later rounds. We know how he is. You said it. He comes on strong. Those are his rounds. Nate did say that he was a little suspect of his cardio, though, in this fight. He had a knee injury or something. I heard him say afterward, he goes, I was a little bit worried that my cardio wasn't going to be there. He goes, I know I can go 5 rounds, but I was scared to push it because he didn't want to gas himself out. So maybe it would have gotten worse. Maybe it would have gotten better. I do feel like Masvidal was such in cruise control that he might have gotten the finish if the fight had kept going.
Yeah, it's tough to say what might have happened, right? Because Nate might have thrown up a triangle. Nate might have, you know what I mean? Like anything can happen. And I feel like that's the hardest part of this is not knowing. But yes, by all sense of reason, it looked like Jorge was going to just keep commanding that fight. Like everything about him looked to be firing on all cylinders. And the hard part, you know, when you kind of look at this fight is if you're a Nate Diaz fan, which I am, you know, you always feel like you want to see more of Nate in there and you always know how much dog he's got in the fight. And if you're a Masvidal fan, like I am, I mean, I really do feel like that was kind of the hardest part of this whole thing for a lot of people anyway, right? Was not wanting to see either of these guys lose. Yeah. But I don't want, you know, you don't want Masvidal's victory to be diminished by people saying like, oh, it was just a doctor stoppage, you didn't really win. Because clearly he's the one who caused all the damage that prompted the stoppage, right? So obviously it shows what a badass Jorge is. It's just that when you're talking the baddest mother effers and stuff, right, you kind of want to see him. Like, I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want Nate's eyeball to be popped out of his head. But at the same time, you wanted that knockdown, drag-out war, which we saw a competitive fight, even though Jorge was winning all 3 rounds, I think. It was still competitive and everything. And I feel like that's, I guess, what I'm upset about more was the slight sort of fizzle of the balloon there and not getting a big pop finish of baddest mother effer. You know, it was a, no, don't let the doctor in. God damn it.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't let him in the cage. And Nate's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. You know, it just was, it was the letdown of the doctor.
And part of it was because of where the fight was taking place.
Yeah.
You know, it was in New York, and we know New York is kind of the Madison Square Garden, the mecca, the history that lies within Madison Square Garden. But that part of the history is the very tough commission, the very strict doctors and commissioning, the board over there. So this fight realistically probably should have taken place in Vegas, where there are more seasoned, experienced.
Yeah.
It's more experienced doctors, more experienced commission that see these types of cuts all the time. I saw a picture recently of Tyson Fury, and it was a comparison of Tyson Fury's eye. He had a tremendous cut on his eye in his last fight, compared to Nate Diaz's. And Tyson Fury's cut was actually much worse. It wasn't in two spots, but it was much bigger across the top. And in Tyson Fury's fight, he was fighting a underdog, and he got cut very bad. I think it was the first or second round. Yeah. He was able to continue the entire fight, 10, 12 rounds, and come back and win the fight. So it just showed that had that fight happened in Vegas or elsewhere other than New York, maybe the fight would have been allowed to keep going, and we could have seen if Nate did what he normally does and comes on strong in those later rounds. Yeah,
if it were in Texas, right, eyeball hanging out, he can still fight.
It's still a good fight. I didn't hear no bell. Yeah,
totally. Well, the question too, then, there's a lot of questions after it. What's next for both guys, right? Should there be a rematch? I don't know where you stand on the BMF rematch. As much as I was enjoying that fight and the idea of the BMF and all this, I know you say, oh, we should run it back and that kind of thing. And I understand why people say that and why in the moment that sometimes feels like the right thing. But to be honest, if I'm Masvidal, I'm kicking back with my hands behind my back and just waiting for the winner of Kamaru and Colby. Like, at this point, Jorge has had this amazing year, 3 incredible victories. I'm not sure why he would risk a rematch or risk anything that... Because that is, as amazing as it is, does that propel him toward a title shot? Maybe it does now, right? Because I'm saying after another victory, he earned it. But wouldn't he be better served either just waiting for that title shot, or there's a guy named Tyron Woodley, there's a guy named Leon Edwards. I don't know if the BMF rematch is the most necessary, the super necessary thing.
Super necessary. Masvidal is arguably the hottest fighter in the UFC at the moment, right? I mean, he's had a year. If we did a vote right now, who's had a better year? Who's hotter right now than Masvidal? He's the guy. He's putting all the spectacular knockouts. They were able to resurrect or make up this title. They had no title fight, and they made up this BMF belt. They made The Rock come. They did so many things. But I agree, it takes a little sizzle out because this was kind of a one and done thing. You took the 2 baddest guys around. You had The Rock. You had it at Madison Square Garden. It was a one-time thing, and he did it. I think part of the reason, Karyn, and I mean this in no disrespect to the Diaz army, to Nate Diaz, whatever about the army, to Nate Diaz, because I'm a fan of his and I know how good of a fighter he is. But I think part of the reason why Masvidal is so willing to take another rematch is not only do they have so much respect amongst one another, but he was commanding that victory. Yeah. He was commanding it. And that was probably the biggest payday of his life, because they probably both, Masvidal, who whatever he's getting paid, had for the first time in his life is now getting pay-per-view points and championship belt type of money.
Right.
So yes, why wouldn't he want to do that again? Because that was by far the biggest payday of his life.
Yeah.
All eyes in the combat world was watching him. And he had a very convincing and commanding lead. I mean, I felt like he was almost kind of toying with Nate Diaz, striking at will. Yeah. He never was really hurt, wasn't too busted up. So it is kind of a favorable matchup for him that he's found out. He goes, you know what? I could beat Nate Diaz, and Nate Diaz sells tickets all day long, and is a guy that he respects. So I think that's why part of the reason that he doesn't mind doing a rematch, aside from the respect. But again, like you're saying, there's so many bigger fights on the boards ahead of him, with the possible actual welterweight championship that lying in the near future as well.
With all that said, Alan, I don't know if the next question for Jorge is Does he fight Kamaru or Colby? You know, those two are fighting in December. There's obviously a lot of heat with Colby if he were to fight Colby.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much beef with Kamaru, but could be interesting. There's a couple other guys up in the mix named Tyron Woodley and Leon Edwards. I don't know what you think is the next move for Jorge.
Going for the bigger fight. Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about it. He said he would do the rematch with Diaz, but if there's bigger fights in the horizon and more money to be made and more, you know, the BMF was fun, but it was a made-up title because they did not have the title fight on the card. If there's a real title fight, 170-pound title fight, you need to take that. You said it. There's a bit of a traffic jam though when you get to the title. Leon Edwards, Tyron Woodley, and now Gamebred, they're all kind of in that next in line spot, but we have to see what happens with Colby Covington and Usman. Personally, I think Usman has what it takes to get through Colby. I think Colby is a lot tougher than a lot of us give him credit for. If he took away the antics and he took away the personality and he was just kind of a gritty fighter, I think he would have a better fan base, maybe not as well known, because I think his antics make him well known, but not a lot of people are fans of him. They just want to see him win or lose. That's, you know, the point of the heel. He understands that. But as a fighter is what I'm speaking about. He's actually a really good fighter in terms of his output, his cardio, his wrestling, the pressure that he puts forth. So he'll give Usman a run for his money, I think. But I think Usman, you compare them side by side, they're very similar. But I think Usman has a power advantage and a size advantage. You saw these guys at weigh-in, the press conference. I don't know why, by the way, that Usman had his shirt off for the press conference. But he looked enormous. Usman is a very, very big guy, a very big welterweight.
Yeah.
And I think he would have a bit of a size advantage over Covington. Over most people that Usman fights, but he would have that advantage over Covington, and that would probably help him in some of those 50-50 scrambles against the cage. Jorge Masvidal, though. Karyn, I'm going to throw one out there. Let me know what you think. I'm going to say a name. Give me the first thing that comes to your mind in terms of Masvidal fighting Conor McGregor. What do you think about that one?
I mean, it'd be entertaining. It'd be entertaining. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Like, I'll watch Conor fight anybody because I think he's entertaining. It's weird, right? Because it seems like they're aiming more for Conor and Cowboy. Does Jorge... That would, I guess, be a big red panty night, right? But I mean, because everybody wants the Conor fight for the money, but I don't know. I guess what does Street Jesus want more? Does Street Jesus want money or does he want the title more? I'm not even sure really what Jorge wants more.
I honestly feel like Jorge kind of would go for the money because a lot of fighters would probably say the same thing. Yes, look, we all want to be the best at what we do. We all want the glory of the championship. But if you say you could win $2 million fighting this guy, you get $1 million fighting this guy, you got to take the guaranteed money. And who doesn't watch Conor fight? Everybody watches it be a big fight. The only reason I throw it out there, Masvidal had some strong words for Conor after the fight. And rightfully so. You look at the way that Conor lost to Nate Diaz. Then he made those adjustments in the second fight, and he was able to win that fight. And a lot of people said Conor was running. He wasn't running, but he was making sure that he did not get pressed on that cage again. So he had to kind of get out of the way real fast or run. He had to run and reset, but he wasn't like running in the means of fighting running. Masvidal made it look almost easy the way he did it. He's the bigger guy. He's got probably better technique in those clinches. And if Conor was watching that fight, Masvidal just said, "Look, dude, you see what I did to Nate Diaz? Think about what I would do to you. You're smaller than me. I hit harder than you. I'm bigger than you. I could command the fight, control the fight." And I think he was just kind of testing the waters and letting Conor know, look, I'm the big fish around here. Conor did respond, though, saying, let's do it. I think that's just the macho in Conor saying that, look, I'll fight you. I'll fight anyone. But I don't think Conor really, truly wants that fight. I think Cowboy is a much stylistically better matchup for Conor. I'm getting off this subject. We're talking about Masvidal here, but these are just all possibilities. Do I think Masvidal should fight Conor next? No. Would I watch it like you said, Karyn? Hell yes, all day long. But realistically, I say it's title shot or a Tyron Woodley type of fight, or a Leon Edwards type of fight.
Yeah, and the thing with Leon that's so tough is that there isn't as much buzz on his name, but he's a very dangerous fighter. And so anybody at this point now who's fighting him kind of has that risk versus reward thing in their head. And granted, the risk, you know, it's always a risk fighting any of these guys in the top, but, you know, it's one thing to lose to Tyron, right? A former champion, or, you know, even, you know, Colby as the interim champion, Kamaru, those have more buzz if it doesn't go your way. Leon is that X factor of the more of a very difficult guy, where they feel like the reward may not be there for the guys. They may think that. So I think he's in a tough place. But when you talk about Conor, when you talk about these money fights now, that also does kind of bring me back to the whole idea of The Rock in there with the BMF. Because, you know, it obviously now had some pro wrestling to it. And The Rock is a guy that, I mean, nobody doesn't like him, right? But there were times when I was watching this, and I don't know a whole lot about pro wrestling and stuff, but, you know, you're there, and I know his history and stuff, and the guys are standing there, and there was this kind of weird feeling of Nate and Jorge, and I feel real possessive of them, right? And who's this wrestler coming in here? You know, if you just take The Rock on being the wrestler. But then it was fun, and there was the BMF belt, and these guys were cool, and I can see how people are debating the crossover, the spirit of WWE coming into the UFC here, and whether or not they like it. I think in this case it was cool. I don't know how much they can always interweave the two worlds, but I think in this case it was kind of fun.
Yeah, I thought The Rock balanced the two worlds pretty well. I'm a big Rock fan. Obviously, I'm a bit biased on the topic, probably, but he's a good guy. He's fun for the sport. He kind of goes back and forth. He's somewhat in that combat world, is what I'm getting at. Being that he comes from wrestling, and he's now making a movie playing Mark Kerr, the Smashing Machine. That old documentary. It was filmed at one of my gyms. Some of it was filmed at one of my gyms in Hollywood. I remember at one point. Part of those sad documentaries. So I don't like those old MMA documentaries where everybody's on pain pills and they're thinking about suicide. Like, I like the new age of MMA where people love to fight and it's about the sport of it and everything. Right. So The Rock, this is kind of a business thing that he's doing. You know, he got into the BMF title fight. He won over some more fans, as if he doesn't need any more 180 million followers on Instagram he has, but he got a few more with the UFC, and now he's making a movie with UFC, making an MMA movie. I think it's great for the sport. You watch all the antics. I think I might have brought up Tyson Fury already, but when you watch Tyson Fury fight, he comes out and he sings that in the ring after the fights. He comes out and he does he did the Rocky Balboa entrance, not coming to America. But the song
Living in America, that's
yeah, you know what I'm saying, James Brown, Not Coming to America, the movie, another classic though. But you know, the entertainment is what I'm getting at. He's found that Mark Tyson Fury, Floyd Mayweather, other guys found that entertainment factor. Mayweather used to come to the ring with Justin Bieber. He would bring the celebrities, but it made it a star-studded attraction, and I think the UFC is slowly getting their feet wet. I'm not against it. As long as they keep the sport true, the fight game real, you could sizzle a little celebrities in there now and then, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think it was fun. It's just, you know, you can't get too carried away with it, I guess, right? But it was fun, and so again, I don't even know if we'll have another BMF belt, right? Or if there would even, not even just if there's a rematch, but if there's ever going to be any other two guys to contest the BMF belt. I guess if there is, maybe we always need to have The Rock there or something like that. I don't know if we're ever going to see this again.
I think that we should put it to bed for now, and let the division continue on. And then it would be fun, I think, to do it in the future later on. You know, in 2 years from now, there's a lot of heated rivalry between two men in another division, like 185, and you've got like Yoel Romero and Bohashinya or something, and it's just like, and they say, you know what, this isn't a title fight, but these two guys want to take each other's heads off.
That's true.
Let's promote it, and then they can do it again in a couple of years in another weight division. But I don't think it's something that they should continue to. I think Jorge should put it on the mantle.
Right.
Look at it for a little while, pour out some whiskey, whatever he needs to do.
Yeah.
And then go and get that big money fight that he now deserves.
Yeah, and it's just tough going for Nate too, because, you know, to have it stopped like that, you know, he didn't really get to quote unquote go out on his shield, right? It's like, on the one hand, you could argue that, yeah, that's an okay way to quote unquote lose because the doctor lost it for you. But, you know, Nate's a fighter and would probably rather slug it out.
You know, I don't want to get too off topic again. I don't know why Conor's in my mind and brought him up, but I'm curious on your point of view, Karyn. What do you think this does for the Conor Diaz trilogy fight? Because I feel like it kind of tarnishes it. It makes it a little bit less intriguing now that Masvidal was so commanding against Diaz. For now, Diaz to go and maybe hold out for a Conor fight or hold out for a rematch with, you know, he's probably going to only want 2 fights now, Diaz. Either the rematch with Masvidal or the rematch with Conor. Right. But it makes the Conor fight a little less intriguing now that Masvidal was so dominant against him, if you know what I mean.
I know what you're saying, but at the same time, it's still a 1-1 score between those two. So there's always going to be the idea of, well, one more to settle the score, right? But I see what you're saying. The further away we get from those fights, the more things kind of come in and cloud it up, and you don't have that specific through line of like which one of these guys is the bigger badass, because if Nathan has lost a fight in between them, but so is Conor, you know, so
that's exactly it.
I don't know. I would still still watch it, obviously, the third fight. And I think you're right. That's an important fight for Nate. You know, at this point, this is a guy who is puts butts in the seats. He's a money fight guy. So it's a little tougher to decide maybe what to do with Nate after this. But I don't know that he loses any street cred by losing that fight to Jorge that way. I don't think his name is any less badass or anything like that.
He's still a G in everyone's mind. He didn't want. He did everything he could to continue the fight, and that's just how he is. Yeah, going back to that other one, I agree with you. Conor's lost some fights since then. Nate's lost some fights since then. It just makes it when they first originally fought, they were on top of the world. Right. Now they're still as big of a celebrity and still have their street credit, but they've suffered some losses. So to me, it took a little bit of the sizzle out of it. But I don't know. We'll have to see where Nate goes after this.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, I'm curious what your take is on the co-main event. You know, Darren Till was moving up to middleweight, and Kelvin Gastelum, that we know has done so many good things there and almost beat Israel Adesanya, was almost the champion. In this fight, you know, they came out in the first round and they were really kind of feeling each other out in that first round. It was close. The whole fight was close. You know, obviously Darren Till ended up getting the decision, but it was one of those where you're like, I don't know who won that round. Yeah. It turns out that one judge had given Kelvin all 3 rounds, one judge had given Darren all 3 rounds, and then one judge gave Darren 2 rounds. I clearly thought Darren won the 3rd round, but it was a weird fight watching it. I to be honest, expected more from both guys. And so it was a little frustrating to see. I mean, I get it. They're both dangerous. It's southpaws. It's tough. It's a measuring game. But Darren, his body, he's totally sized for middleweight. I guess I expected him or hoped for him maybe to go out there and sling a little bit more heavy leather, you know?
Yeah. I think it was one of those fights where like styles make fights, and being that both men or southpaw, and you know, to me the biggest factor in it is this: Kelvin Gastelum, great fighter. He's had such a terrific run at middleweight. I think because his advantage, his X factor, is his speed. He's kind of built a certain way where he's the shorter guy, but it plays good for his style because he's kind of boxy built, but very fast. And guys like that are, for some reason, are very, very hard to fight because you're kind of punching down, but they're covering distance very, very fast. And so he's had a lot of success. He's been the quicker guy. And then he's had this emerging knockout power that has come with it. And so those hand in hand have worked very well for him. Now he's fighting another welterweight, Darren Till, coming up in weight. So even though Darren Till wasn't really known as the quickest guy at welterweight, now he's somewhat equally as quick, it seemed to me, as Gastelum in this fight. And so you take that speed advantage that that he had, and you put it against Till, and now it just becomes, are you going to land that knockout punch? He didn't really hit Till. He didn't really damage Till that much. So I think that was just kind of part of it. They could fight again and it be an all-out brawl. They was a little bit too timid in that fight, for my opinion. But it just showed the respect. But again, Kelvin Gastelum has not gotten by. He's a tremendous fighter, but he's had an advantage with the speed, and it wasn't evident in this fight.
Yeah, it's tough too, because respectfully, Darren said before the fight that he was scared. Like he admitted that he was nervous. I mean, he's coming in off of a couple of losses, a couple of big losses, and his confidence was shaken. And, the fact that he admitted to being, terrified in there and walking in there. I mean, a lot of guys, obviously go in with all that bravado. So a lot of respect for him for saying that. And yeah, I guess apparently he said at one point during the fight, even he was like, come on, man, like, let's go. Even he could say it to himself, like, shake it off, don't be so stressed out in here. Let it go. And so maybe that is, it's a combination of a lot of things of coming in when they're back against the wall, trying out a new weight class, going up against a good guy, going there in Madison Square Garden. I mean, that is a pretty massive moment. And so for Darren to come out on the right side of that, you know what I mean, and get the victory is great for him, and I'm sure a huge sense of relief. It's just that, when you've seen somebody that is quote unquote a beast, in both of those guys, you know what I mean? Obviously Kelvin too has totally wrecked people. And so it was, I guess, more of the disappointment of not getting that war that both of the guys are capable of, not trying to take away anything from their performance, because obviously they're both very challenging opponents. Yeah.
So Darren Till, you brought it up. Darren Till's comment about maybe wanted to fake an injury before the fight because he was scared. He also had another comment after the fight where he said they brought up Yoel Romero.
Oh yeah.
And he said, I don't ever want to fight that guy. That guy's a beast or something like that.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about both of these comments. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
So the analyst, the commentator, the podcaster,
right?
I appreciate it. I appreciate the genuineness and the honesty, because we all get scared. I was cornering one of my students this weekend, and I get this question almost every fight from my students, and he goes, when do you stop getting scared or when do you stop getting nervous? I go, never. He goes, for real? I go, dude, I've had 30, 40, whatever fights all together. I go, I still get nervous every time. I have a little anxiety attacks, and then I just say I rely on my technique. Yeah. I rely that I've been here before, and I use those nerves. I don't push them away. I don't fight against them. Every time somebody says they're not nervous, they end up losing. Every time I corner somebody. So I don't like when they're not nervous. What I'm getting at is I appreciate Darren Till's honesty and him opening up, saying these things. I remember GSP said at one time, too, that he's scared before every fight.
Yeah.
So I applaud that, because that is true emotion. But the fighter in me, I can't help it. The fighter in me goes, why is this guy showing this weakness? Because I've always had little anxiety attacks or nervous where I go, what the hell am I doing? I could be laying out somewhere, but I'm freaking about to get in a fist fight and 1 million people are watching. And then I get past it, right? But I have never in my life said, should I fake an injury? How do I get myself out of this? I've never not gone through the test. I've always pushed through the test, where he was looking for a way out. So that little bit of weakness that I applaud him for showed me a little bit of a kink in his mental armor.
Yeah.
Also for him saying, Yoel Romero is a beast. I don't ever want to fight that guy. You're now in that division, and he's somebody that you likely could fight, especially if you're already talking about fighting Adesanya. Well, you probably got to get through Yoel Romero. So that's a big confidence boost for Yoel.
Right.
Thinking, wow, this guy's scared of me. He could still beat me, but he's scared of me. And so I got to find a way to use that. So I don't know if I necessarily had a point to this, but it was a little it caught me off guard, to be honest. For a fighter, for an active fighter, a guy like Till, who's got this gorilla persona, to admit that he was trying to, fake an injury to get out here, and he's scared to fight certain guys. It threw me for a loop. I got to be honest, Karyn.
Yeah, you make a lot of sense there, and I didn't really, I guess, hear the fake the injury bit, but when I saw the UL part too, I kind of thought the same thing. Like, you're not supposed to admit that out loud. You're not supposed to say that. Everybody's afraid of UL, but nobody says it.
Right, exactly. You don't say those things because you're not going to hear Nate Diaz say that I was going to fake it. That's why he's the BMFer.
Right.
And so even though we're all human, we experience certain emotions, you shouldn't say some of those things. So him to vocalize it, I applaud it, but it shows me that there are those doubts in his mind.
Yeah, and listen, by Yoel, we don't know how much longer Yoel's going to fight anyway, but they may never have the time to match up. But it is an interesting thing, right? Because does that mean all of a sudden you've just told the matchmakers never put us together, or now you've just made the matchmakers put you together? Right. You know what I mean? So
he might have jinxed himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So one fight I know that you loved, though, I think, right, was Wonderboy versus Vicente Luque, the return of Wonderboy. You and I both thought that he would get the win in this case, and he did. Vicente, we know, hits really hard, and Steven even said after, he's like, this guy's got a tough chin, and, he hits hard. He hits really hard, but I thought Steven had a nice performance. There were times when I'll just say the people I was with were questioning whether or not he has that killer instinct, because there were times when it looked like Steven had Vicente in trouble, maybe up against the fence, and he was peppering him, and it looked like maybe, again, obviously easier said than done, he could have put the finishing kill in more, gone to the body, done the finishing sequence where he didn't. And so I was with people that were questioning his killer instinct. I'm curious what your take is.
I like this question, Karyn. First off, I got to get a little detail, a little backstory. Were the people you with fighters or
no? But they watch a lot of fights, so they're well versed. It was not, put it this way, it wasn't the dude across the bar who literally the whole time Nate and Jorge were fighting. Was just,
no.
He was going triangle, triangle.
Yeah.
No, so they know the fights. They've watched them a lot, but they were. Yeah. Because Steven's whole persona is such a nice guy, and obviously we've seen these beautiful, perfect head kick knockouts and everything perfect, but maybe he doesn't go in for the kill.
Yeah. Well, this is, I was going to bring something up when we talked about this, so you kind of led me into it. Yeah. I saw a hole in his game as well, and it's not a hole, but it's more of a missing link to his game, and it lends itself to what you're saying, and what it is he's a kickboxer. Right. He likes to fight at distance. So he loves to be at the end of his punches, the end of his kicks, and blitz people. But when he has somebody hurt and against a cage, he would stay at the end of his punch. And what he would do is says, what do I go to? Where's my back pocket move? I'll go to the spinning back heel kick. Right. It didn't land. I'll go back to long punches, long kicks. Try it again. Or another spinning back heel kick. Yeah. The thing that he was missing that I think for your friends was the killer instinct is the clinch. The entire time I was watching that fight, I go, Steven's a man. He fights beautifully. But my God, when your opponent's hurt and they're kind of turtled up on the cage with their hands like this, you just grab them by the head and start smashing them with elbows, smashing them with knees. That's when the dirty boxing clinch game becomes really prevalent, because you can grab the head. They're not punching. We're not this stance. You just grab them in dirty boxing and beat them up. And so there's a lot of times, like I said, when Leon Edwards fights, he thinks like that, and we think alike. Where Steven doesn't quite. I don't want to talk negative, because I'm friends with Steven, and I love his fighting style, and I thought he fought perfect. But if he would have had a dominant clinch game, he would have finished that fight, I believe. A couple of elbows, a couple of knees, a knee to the face, that would have put him away. But he was going for the Hail Mary spinning back heel kicks, because his finishing, that's kind of his finishing go-to move. So that's what I was seeing. When the killer instinct wasn't quite there, he just really didn't have it in his arsenal to be in that dirty boxing clinch type style, because that's not really his world. Right. He was hoping to catch him from afar. With that said, though, Vicente, I thought he fought great as well. Aside from having a granite chin,
I know,
he made an adjustment that I found in this fight. And the reason that we both picked Steven, or we both picked Steven, but the reason that I thought Steven would win is because Vicente is kind of like a Dutch Muay Thai style, where he plays close guard, and he's like, I'll let you go, I'll block, and I'll counter. And that's kind of his style. It's almost like watching Glory. He'll let you punch, and he goes bop, bop, bop. And he's got beautiful striking, but he plays very close. He doesn't play distance. And he's had success. But Steven is a long fighter. Right. And so I was wondering, how would Vicente come out? Would he come out Dutch style, or would he open up his range? Right. Opening up. And I said, okay, very smart. He knew he had to not allow Steven to just, take all the distance. And he made that adjustment, and his chin held up. But again, Steven fought beautifully. Love watching Vicente fight. Elbows and knees, I think, would have finished that fight, though.
Yeah, it was. I just was happy to have Steven back. I like watching him fight too. And, again, this is a guy coming off some losses, needed to get his groove back. So it was an important win for him. And Vicente is on an absolute tear and has been finishing people. So that was definitely still a risky fight. And there were times when Vicente tagged, I'm like, Steven, you might want to keep your hands up, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was a couple times where he definitely had his chin tested. So anybody, whenever they lose to Wonderboy, that's not like such a bad thing, right? I mean, obviously you don't want the loss on your record, but Wonderboy, a former title challenger, so no shame in losing to him. And to me, killer instinct or not, I thought Wonderboy looked sharp and technical, just like always, like the old always, I guess. I'm happy. I'm like happy to have him back in the mix. Doesn't look like he got hurt. So I don't know how quickly again he could fight, but this is a name that is always going to be dangerous around the top of that division that we're talking about. Like maybe Leon Edwards fights Wonderboy, right? Because if they ever fought, because Wonderboy actually beat Masvidal, I think, already in the past.
Yeah. Right.
And we know what happened when Wonderboy fought Tyron. So maybe Leon would be the X factor in that. I don't know.
I like that fight. I think that's a good fight right there too. Yeah. That'd be a good matchup. One last thing on this fight with who did Steven fight? I'm
Luque.
blanking on his name all of a sudden.
Vicente Luque.
Sorry, Luque.
Yeah.
I think he should take a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
This was a tough fight. I mean, Steven was cracking him with some very good straight shots, some good kicks, some shots to the body. A lot of damage. And when I was watching this fight, I was commending Luque on, man, it's tough. But then I thought back and I thought, man, he showed some toughness in that Mike Perry fight. Probably too much toughness. He showed some toughness in that Barberena fight. Probably too much toughness. Now he's in this fight with Wonderboy where they're fighting the night and he's taking a tremendous amount of damage. What I'm getting at is Luque is a very good fighter, very tough guy, but he's probably taken 3 of his last 4 fights were the type of fights you want to take once a year. But he's had about 3 in his last 4 fights. And I think it's going to start showing a little wear and tear if he continues taking these tough fights. He's a great tough guy, and that's his style. But, I just was noticing that, when somebody like Stephen Thompson lands like 170 significant strikes on you, give your brain a little break after.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. Vicente has had a very busy year. And definitely should just take a break. I don't want to see him till like springtime. You know what I mean? Like rest up. And he got married not that long ago and all this stuff. Like, agree with you 100% on that. Taking a break. Black Beast was back after a break. Yeah. Got the win over Blagoy, Ivanov. People were debating this one, I guess. I really didn't find reason to debate it. I thought he won. But I then saw online some people didn't think he won. I mean, I was impressed that the Beast looks to be in better condition, that he still had something in the gas tank in the 3rd round. I was actually, I guess it was probably between rounds 2 and 3. I tweeted out, like, how is Ivanov still standing? Because the Beast was landing some seriously heavy shots on him. And I don't know how that dude was still standing, but I didn't have an issue with that decision. I thought the Black Beast won, but what's your take?
Yeah, this was one of those fights where I was like going back and forth to my guy that was fighting in person, running through the TV. So I didn't get to watch the whole thing as a whole and score it. But every time I would go and lay my eyes on the TV, the Black Beast seemed to be kind of doing more, had some cage work, even got like some kind of like takedowns here and there. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much of the actual fight, being that I didn't see its entirety. But I was happy for the Black Beast. I'm a fan. I know you're a fan. We like the Black Beast. Get him back on the winning track. That way he can go and do some more bigger fights, some headlining fights. Yeah,
I think it was good for him to get his groove back and stuff. And like I said, he does seem to be more fit and, maybe taking the conditioning part. It does seem like every time we're seeing him, he's at least processing of like, these are things I should work on. And I can't, now he's not just trading on like having one big punch and being sloppy in there. Like, he's putting it together more, which I think is good. So I'm, I thought that was fine. Like I said, I didn't have a problem with that. But the thing I was impressed with was Kelvin, the Motown phenom Lee.
Oh.
Holy shnikes. Like, whoa. Yeah. Like, place went mental that where we were watching, and like you and I again both thought that Kelvin was going to win this fight, but I did not expect Kelvin to win that way.
I didn't either. First of all, I didn't expect it. When I saw what happened, it dawned on me. Every time Kelvin fights, he's so good everywhere.
He really is.
But every time he fights, he throws a head kick, and I go, holy crap! He's got like really open, like good hips, like good kicks. He's not stylistically like a kicker, really.
Right.
But when he throws kicks, like his hips open up. It's a very nice like projectile. The way that the angle, like I just noticed that when he fought Tony Ferguson, when he fought a couple guys, they go, holy crap! If that kick would have landed, he would have killed somebody.
Right.
And I've always thought that, but he's always thrown maybe like one or two a fight, and they never really land. This one landed. This one landed on the button. He put his lights out. I thought his opponent was dead for a bit.
Yeah.
A big comeback for Kelvin, or big, not comeback in the fight, but comeback what he needed to get himself back on track, get that momentum going again, get his confidence back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing is Gregor has been really kind of putting it on people. And even though some detractors will say, oh, Gregor's just, a wrestle effer. But he makes a good point that he might wrestle people a lot, but then he eventually peppers him up, gets a TKO or whatever, is able to get a finish on them. But I did think that, like you said, Kelvin is just more well-rounded and had more going into this fight and more ways to win there. But I didn't expect that head kick. Like, I don't know why I didn't expect it. Maybe I haven't been paying attention to the head kicks he's been throwing in his last fights. I just didn't expect it to land so perfectly. And I actually thought that fight was going to go at least 2 rounds. I think also that was part of it, that I was startled that it happened that quickly in the fight. But, Kelvin is a guy that, like the Iaquinta fight, and a couple of times where he's like, how did I lose that? I don't, things weren't firing for him. He's had a tough time in terms of talking up a game and then not being able to get the victory. This time he seemed quieter before the fight, or maybe I just wasn't as, maybe there was so much noise about Nate and Jorge, but it did seem that, Kelvin was just a little quieter maybe and just knew, he had a job to do and had to get it done. I find him to be a very likable guy. When you get to know him a little bit personally and stuff, he's a good kid. I don't like seeing anybody, with their back against the wall and in that must-win desperation situation. But you can't come out of a funk any better than with a win like that. Like, that was just like, boom, baby, I'm back, and that has to be not only a great confidence booster for him, but also just for the UFC in general to say, like, yeah, here's a guy that has appeal. He's got swagger. He's got following. Like, and now when he's back to his groove delivering on the fights, like, all is well in the world.
Every guy has kind of like a career highlight. Obviously, with Masvidal, it was Ben Askren. They show these highlights over and over.
Yeah.
This will always be Kelvin's highlight because it's the perfect meme. It's, you want to see a dead body. I mean, he killed Gregor for a minute. Thank God he was okay, I hope.
Yeah, I think so.
But that was a brutal knockout, and I agree. Everything that you said. I like Kevin Lee. I don't think I've ever met Kevin Lee in person, but just from watching him through the sport, I like his personality. He's not scared to take on a challenge. He's not scared to open up and be himself in front of the TV and with answering questions. And it's good to see him get back on the winning track again. And if you do go back and watch one of his old fights, I think it was Tony Ferguson. I watched Tony Ferguson. He almost took Tony Ferguson's head off a couple times. But Tony would like roll through it or something. Tony was doing some weird crap anyway. But every time he would do it, I go, you got to watch out for these kicks, man. He's dangerous.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was definitely a statement win for Kelvin, which just brings me, I got to talk about one more fight. If Corey Anderson.
Oh, man.
Like, dude, what a statement, right? So we saw Corey a couple weeks ago out at the Tyson Ranch, did an interview with him, also had a fun time doing No Wrong Answers with him, talking about like his favorite fast food and different stuff like that. So people should look for the No Wrong Answers with Corey to get a totally different side of him, like a fun, lighthearted side of him. But he was talking about how there was a lot of hype on Johnny, and people were buying that hype, and nobody's really done this to him, nobody's done that to him, like, and he was saying the whole time beforehand, like, look, I'm gonna fight my fight. There have been times in the past when I listened to the fans, and maybe I was wrestling and I was winning, but I could hear the fans yelling, and so maybe I engaged in stand up too much longer. Then I ended up losing. Right? He was talking about that happened in the OSP fight and another one of his fights where he was totally winning. Listened to the crowd, went away from his own strategy, and lost the fight. So when he's telling me all this stuff about his strategy, I'm like, cool, come out, take him down, do your wrestling thing, secure the win. You know what I mean? It might be whatever. Some of the fans might be annoyed, but like, you're trying to get a title shot, you need to win the fight. But holy crap, like when the way he came out, just blasted him. And you could tell Johnny was like, what, this is not the dude that I expected to come out here and fight. What an emphatic victory. And then there's the way he was running around screaming in the octagon after. This was the win he absolutely needed. And you couldn't have done it more perfectly. You
took the words out of my mouth, Karyn. Corey Anderson needed to make a statement to get this title fight, and he made a huge statement right there. He went into this fight with a chip on his shoulder. Felt like he's been disrespected. The UFC was overlooking him. Johnny Walker was the guy they were already making comparisons with. John Jones, Johnny Walker. Is this the guy to finally step up and beat him? And Corey Anderson took offense to that. He's a guy that you follow him on Twitter, and he feels like he's always been overlooked his entire career. You stated on it. Sometimes it's his style, sometimes it's his wrestling. Sometimes it's just, a loss here or there. But disregard all of that. He has a winning record, and he's always the guy fighting the top of the division. He has now got that winning streak going. He just knocked out one of the hottest prospects in the 205 division, and he made a statement. And I love that he didn't just let it go. He didn't just knock the guy out and keep quiet. He let everybody know how he felt. He let Dana White know how he felt. Let the UFC said, give me the title fight or release me. Even though I saw Dana's response to that, and Dana kind of laughed it off. He said it was kind of stupid.
Right.
They took note. Because now we have a bit of a drama between Anderson and John Jones. John Jones is going to react to that type of fight. I'm happy for him. I like Anderson. I said Anderson. Yeah, Eric.
Corey Anderson.
Eric Anderson. Yeah, I was saying Anderson. I think it's what he needed right now. Though, man. It was a perfect statement in that fight.
It's what he needed, and it is a perfect statement. But Dom Reyes also just beat Chris Weidman.
Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes.
And Dom Reyes, you know what I mean? Dom Reyes has got a lot of sizzle on him, too. And, new blood. Oh, it's tough. It's tough because it was exactly what Corey needed, and it still might not be enough.
It may not be enough, but if Corey can only worry about Corey Anderson, he just shot his credit through the roof, right? His momentum is now going. Is it out of his control? Yes. You know what I mean? They might go with Reyes because of what just happened, main eventing and everything, getting the dominant victory. But he did what he had to do, physically fighting and then getting on the microphone and calling for that fight.
Yeah, well, it was intense. Like I said, I didn't actually expect it to happen like that. But good for him. And, obviously we'll see what happens with Johnny Walker coming back from that. But yeah, all in all, I thought it was a fun night. Now, how did your guys do? Because you were cornering too earlier in the night. Did your guys win?
My guy got out wrestled. Yeah, a decision loss. It was an amateur title fight. So, 2-minute rounds. I want to say, 3 2-minute rounds. They're short rounds. And I got out wrestled. When I was young, and I started off in Muay Thai, and I went into Jiu-Jitsu, I'd always go, I need to work on that in-between game. It's called wrestling. And we figure it out. Once you start getting to the higher levels and to the pros, you start fighting these dominant wrestlers, you got to put the time and the effort into wrestling. And so my guy's going to get back to the drawing board and get that wrestling down.
Yeah, I guess that's tough. But hey, it's a learning experience, right? A quick question for you, actually. One more fight on there. Andrei Arlovsky got knocked out pretty quickly by Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who did basically the exact same thing. I saw him fight, I was on that St. Petersburg card. And we're like, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, like we're having a hard enough time saying his name. By the time you learn how to say his name, you're like, well, damn, fight's over.
Oh, that was the one that he hit the guy with the jab.
Yeah, and and he knocked Arlovsky out with I forget what it was, but like
it was like a check hook.
Right, but in Russia, I think it literally was like a jab, and he came out. So this dude, we're gonna have to start paying attention to this man because obviously he's got some sick power.
Tell me how to enunciate his name. Rosenstruck?
Jairzinho Rosenstruck. Rosenstruck is how I think you're supposed to say it. Rosenstruck. It's like a funky name, but Rosenstrike, I guess you can say. But I think we were saying Rosenstrike. Strike.
Nonetheless, Rosenstruck. We're gonna get his name. I'm gonna get his name. I'm gonna be able to say it eventually. But I'm very curious to see him fight some next caliber opponents. I mean, Andre Arlovsky is an Excalibur, but he's been weathered. His chin has been tested. So I want to see him fight a younger guy. But the power is tremendous. I saw when the fight you're talking about, I believe, where he knocked the guy out with the jab. Yeah. And the same thing happened in this fight with Arlovsky. It was like a check hook that he dropped Arlovsky with, but I went back and rewatched it. And as soon as the fight starts, Arlovsky and Rosenstruck go in for a jab simultaneously. Right. And Rosenstruck lands, and it buckles Andre for a second, and he catches his wit again. And that alone made me go, man, this guy's got tremendous power. He's dropping people. He's buckling people with the jab. After that, I think it kind of kinked the armor and Arlovsky, and that check hook landed perfect, but I don't think he needed all power in it. I think it was just because that jab had already did the damage and the hook put him away.
Yeah, no, it's tough because when you see a guy like Andre, who's a legend and stuff, you don't like to see him get knocked out. I don't know how many more fights he's got left at this point. But yeah, Jairzinho is a guy that we might want to pay attention to. And it's funny because, we have heavyweights coming up. Like I said, I'm going to Moscow. I leave on Wednesday. And initially, we were supposed to have Junior Dos Santos versus Alexander Volkov. And then Junior got that infection, unfortunately. So Greg Hardy is coming in after that debacle with the inhaler, which, to be fair, should have been vetted, right? Somebody should have been like, yo, you can't do that or whatever. Like, I'm sure it's not like he just pulled it out of his pocket, right? So that whole thing is whatever, a mess of miscommunication or who knows what. But he is taking a huge step up in competition, and he'll, be out in Moscow. And so that was supposed to be the main event. Junior and Volkov, it's not. So now the main event will be Zabit Magomedsharipov versus Calvin Kattar. And this is actually an awesome fight. So I'm really much looking forward to this one. It's funny because I've been starting to do my prep work and stuff. But Zabit, I don't know how much you watch Zabit, but Zabit is like, this dude can throw anything at all times. Yeah. And Calvin can put people down with straights. Like it's going to be actually, I think, a very entertaining fight because Calvin is a powerful guy and I think this is going to be a good fight actually.
Yeah, I think Calvin's a guy that probably doesn't stand out tremendously, but he does everything really well, and he's very strong. Yeah. And sometimes that's what you need. You just need the guy that pushes forward and keeps the fight honest to fight a guy like Zabit because he's so long and so all over the place. Like you said, he could throw any type of kick, any given point. A guy like Calvin might be the perfect storm for him.
Yeah, I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to go back to Russia. When I was there in April, I had a really good time. Now, the thing is in my head, I was like, oh, April in, Russia was pretty, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh no, it's November, and I was like, oh no, wait a minute, and so I was looking up, and it's already cold, and so I guess it might already be snowing, but then I was thinking about it, I'll be able to get that's kind of the way you're supposed to get a picture with the Kremlin, right? Is while you're cold and it's behind you. Isn't that kind of the way it's supposed to be?
That'd be nice. You have a fox hat on and some snow boots. It'll look like Rocky IV when he's training in the snow. It'll be great.
It'll be great. It'll be great. But I tell you one thing, Alan, the more I travel the world, the more I get people asking me what the hell is going on with Alan and when is he fighting? So people need to know.
So this is the deal, guys. I love doing the show. I love doing everything. I love being involved in the fight game. Unfortunately, right now, I have to sit out from actually competing for a little while. I was in talks with UFC. We were working on getting me a fight. I even agreed upon if Robbie Lawler needed a last-minute opponent December to throw my name in the hat. Looked like that wasn't going to happen. They were working on something in January. Yeah. But long story short, I unfortunately injured my knee, and it's just something that's out of my control. Something that's probably kind of ongoing, and then it happened now, and I have to have surgery. So I will be out a while, and I'm bummed out about it, but in a way, I'm glad that it happened now. before I picked up too much momentum. Because although I was loving how healthy I feel right now, I would hate to have announced the fight and signed the contract and put in 2 months of work and time and effort and money and hours, and then put in all that work and then have to pull out of the fight due to injuries. So as disappointed as I am, I'm taking it in stride. I'm actually feeling pretty positive about it. I'm going to have the surgery done, get back on the healing track, and get in there soon. So I just wanted to let the fans, the viewers, the people that watch the show and that have been asking, I want nothing more than to get in there as soon as possible, but I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. I'm like, I tell people that, I'm like, if you think you want to see him fight, how do you think Alan feels?
It's all I dream about, just being healthy. When I'm healthy, I feel like Superman. It's just that I'm injured so frequently that it's out of my control.
Yeah, it sucks. But like you were saying, in terms of timing, it's not the worst time, right? It's the holiday season anyway, when you get busy. Sometimes people are distracted when they're trying to be in a camp over the holidays and stuff anyway. So obviously we wish you a speedy recovery.
Thank you.
On all that. Otherwise I've had, my tennis season's been going okay. One of my matches we didn't win, unfortunately. We lost it in the tiebreak. But overall my team is doing well and stuff. It's just that I've been traveling, so I haven't gotten to play as often. But it's double season anyway. So I really prefer the single season. It needs to be all about me, Alan. Actually, no. I just hate the feeling of like, oh shit, oh that was mine, oh shoot, sorry, oh my bad. I like just going for everything myself. But so we will. I'll be back from Moscow on Sunday, so we should be able to still crank out a podcast next week before I then turn around and leave for Sao Paulo, going back to Brazil. And I haven't been in a long time, so I'm really looking forward to that. And I saw, Damien, I know we didn't really get to talk about this because I was away in Singapore, but talking to Damien after his really incredible win over Ben. I thought that was such a great fight, for both guys. I know it's tough for Ben Askren, to have a couple of losses now after, this incredible career. And I think it's really kind of crappy for people to be like, oh, he's a washout and we shouldn't have signed him. And that's wrong. It was a great fight with Damien. My point on this is just talking to Damien after. He's from Sao Paulo. So hopefully I was like, dude, you got to take me to your favorite like coxinha place and stuff. So hopefully I'll be able to see him down there and, kind of get a sense of Sao Paulo because I'll be there, for a few days. I don't think I leave till late on Sunday. But just looking forward to that. But I don't know. I thought that trip to Singapore was great, but I did think that main event between those two was a really good fight. So.
Yeah, I think you got fight of the night as well, right?
Yeah,
and I think Damien said he might have 1, maybe 2 fights left. I think he was trying to call his fight out. Maybe Diego Sanchez. So we'll see if that fight takes place.
It's possible. Well, all right. So Moscow, I'm coming for you. I'll be probably one of the only people with this shade of skin over there. I think last time I went there, I didn't see a lot. I mean, I know you'll see some. You see a lot of different kinds of people, but I didn't see a lot of different kinds of people. But
well, good.
But
you like to stand out. So there you go.
Do I? I don't know. I told you though. I figured out.
On the tennis court.
Right. If here I am walking around strange places, I'm always concerned for my safety. And then I realized the other day, it dawned on me that maybe they're afraid of me.
Yeah.
So
maybe so.
I got that going for me because Lord knows I'm real scary. Yeah.
I know. I don't think they're scared.
I mean, yeah. But no, I had a great time last time, so looking forward to it. And like I said, my favorite drink is vodka, and my favorite alcoholic beverage. It's not like my favorite drink of all time. But anyway, to be able to get the locally sourced vodka is pretty special.
Nice. Stolies. It's Stolies, right?
Exactly. All right, so to follow my exploits, KB Heat on Instagram, Karyn Bryant on YouTube and Twitter. While you're on YouTube, you may as well hit the subscribe button. Also, MMA Heat across the platforms. And when you're looking for Alan, where do we find Alan?
Good. And me across the board, Alan Jouban on all social media, guys.
Awesome. And then also these podcasts are available on MMA.audio as well as on YouTube and on MMAheat.com. So if you're looking for audio downloads, you can find them there. All right, Alan, did you make it all the way through Cage's Halloween candy yet, or are you still eating some?
We hid that. We threw that stuff away. Yeah, I'm done with it. I can't. But I don't understand. The Halloween these days, they don't give out enough Reese's Pieces. Like I saw like one of those. That's all I used to look for when I was trick or treating back in the day.
Yeah, well, we don't even know where Aurora put her candy, so that's an issue.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.